cost, it was a big old thing because he went to the director saying that I started something. But they had to pull the footage. But they had to pull the footage.
One of the coolest things I've been involved with in my whole life is the creation of the Edinburg UFO Festival and Conference. This was our 13th year. I had people come up to me when we first started 12 years ago. I was on the organizing committee and I was the originator of the idea to have it. I have people come up to me right away and say, your conference is not going to last. The Rio Grande Valley doesn't care about UFOs. They care about pachangas and mariachi and cumbia. And you need to have some kind of festival about that. UFOs, come on, really, aliens, who cares? Well, I'm proud to say that 13 years later, we're still doing it. Every year has gotten bigger. We've had to move into larger facilities. We've gotten, you know, when we started, I would call some of the major UFO researchers in the world and ask them if they would come speak, and they were like, well, I don't know, Edinburg? What that, is that in Scotland? Where? You know, and now I call, you know, major UFO researchers, guys who've been on the ancient aliens, and they right away jump at the idea of coming down here. The Edinburg UFO Conference was recently rated the 3rd best UFO festival in the world. I'm going to talk just briefly in about 30 minutes. I'm going to give you an overview of some of the fantastic conferences that we've had over the years. And this next one that's coming up, which is going to be our 13th one, is going to be possibly the best one of all. We're going to have Giorgio Tsoukalos as our featured speaker. Mr. Ancient Aliens, the guy with the spiky hair. I wish I could get my hair done like that, you know, and be like a mini Giorgio. So anyway, what I want to do is I want to reflect upon these 12 years of incredible events. If you look on the internet, you'll see people all over the world talking about the Edinburg UFO Festival. And so I'm going to share with you some of the amazing programs that we've had over the years. And how it all began was, believe it or not, in this room. In 2012, January 12, I was asked by the library staff here to come and present about my research that I've done. I've written 30 books about UFOs, by the way. And they wanted me to present something about my research on UFOs. So I stood up here. It was slightly different at that time, but it was the same room. The library had put out some snacks. And this room was completely full, and there were people standing in the back. They said that they planned the program as kind of a trial, so that if people showed interest, then we could have possibly a full-blown conference. And that's exactly what happened. The room was full. Steve, I want you to stand. I want you to stand. Slightly grayer, but still here. Still with my fans. Is there anybody else that was here that night? Probably not, but that's what it was. And I talked about UFO cases from the Rio Grande Valley. I shared a bunch of cases that people had brought to my attention here in the valley.
No, I have a question.
Yes.
At what age did you start showing interest, or was there something that kind of impacted you to do the research for UFOs?
My mom had a UFO encounter in the 1940s in north of Mission, in a rural area where I grew up, and my family had their little ranch. Yeah. And sometime I'll talk about that. It's been featured in several UFO books, and she had an encounter with a craft, and I'll talk about that at some point. Yeah, it's a very good question.
Noe, please talk to us about
it first. Yeah, now if you don't want a 2-hour presentation. Okay. So after we had this little program in this room, the library staff was extremely thrilled because they like programs that attract a lot of people, of course, and I don't blame them. So they scheduled the first ever Edinburg UFO Conference to be held on August 10th, the same year, by the way, just a few months forward. and it was what they called a mini conference. It was only 2 hours long, and it was held in the city auditorium. Everybody know where the Edinburg Municipal Auditorium is, over there behind City Hall? It's a very historic building, by the way. It was it was originally part of Edinburg High School, then it was part of the university, and now it belongs to the city, and they have a lot of programs there. So we had a friend of mine who unfortunately has since moved from the Valley, but we still keep in touch, Dr. Robert Gross, and he's a major UFO researcher about cases that happen in his native state of Pennsylvania. And we also had Ismael Cuellar, another friend of mine from Laredo, who spoke about paranormal happenings there. I'm just going to share this.
Welcome everyone to the city of Edinburg. This is our historic auditorium, and we thank you for being here today. It's been recently renovated, so we're really happy to have this program. We have a series of speakers today. For the first, we'll be hosting the annual UFO conference, and from the looks of it, I think we are going to continue it. It's a very
So even then, they were, it was kind of a trial balloon. I'll get to you in just a second. They just wanted to know if this concept was even going to work. And your question?
Should I go to the restroom?
Oh, absolutely. You can go anytime you need to.
Okay.
Okay, so we had the auditorium full, and they had to turn people away for that first session. So it was obvious that there was interest in the Valley despite all the naysayers. And in the UFO community and the UFO research, you have to get used to people who are just against the whole concept. Like the one that came up to you and started giving you a hard time. You say UFO, and for some reason, it just makes them go haywire. But the interesting thing is, I've read research that says people who have had experiences in their past that made them very uncomfortable or made them very frightened, that in the future they become deniers of what happened to them and deniers of the whole UFO experience. So that's possibly what's going on here. So our second conference is really what I consider to be the first official one, because it was the first day-long event with multiple speakers from all over the world, and it brought together some of the finest UFO speakers in the world. Because I had previously spoken at conferences around the United States, including Roswell, New Mexico, I had connections with speakers such as Stanton Friedman and Travis Walton, so I asked them to come, and since they knew me, they were willing to come. And we had two of the top speakers at that time, the late Stanton Friedman, came and spoke here in Edinburg, and Travis Walton told the amazing story of being abducted and taken aboard a UFO for a week, and what he saw on that craft and the extraterrestrials that he experienced there. I'm going to show you a little audio clip of Travis Walton speaking that day in Edinburgh.
And that's what we saw, and this is kind of from my perspective looking up at it right before I was hit. And I just, was at first just standing there, just in awe of this, And John Gillette describes this as looking like some powerful sports car, just really, just real impressive and actually beautiful in a scary kind of way.
The most solid and heavily well-documented UFO abduction case, in my opinion, is the case of Mr. Travis Walton. He's the most down-to-earth individual I've ever met. He's not the kind that would just fabricate out of whole cloth some weird encounter with aliens aboard an spacecraft. He's a hard-working, blue collar. He was a logger on a logging crew in Arizona, in the forests of Arizona. I've been out to visit his home in Snowflake, Arizona. He took us out to the spot where this happened. I've eaten many meals with Travis. He has a real strong affinity for Texas barbecue, by the way. And every time he comes down here, I take him to Rudy's, which is his favorite place. But I would absolutely say that with 200% certainty, I believe in his case that he was abducted and he was held aboard a UFO for a week. So if you want to hear more about his story, I recommend that you look that up. He's been on a lot of television shows. There was a film made of his experience called Fire in the Sky, and I recommend that you look that up.
Did you see it?
Yes, ma'am.
Sorry, no,
No problem.
you mentioned that you went back to the place where he did that experience.
Yeah.
How is his reaction or his demeanor of returning to that site?
He gets, when he isn't speaking publicly about his experience, which he does so, he says, as a cathartic experience to kind of get it off his chest. Even after so many years, it bothers him. But when we were there standing where it happened, he got kind of quiet and he was just walking around. And he wouldn't say much unless we asked him a direct question, like, whereabouts do you think you were standing? Where was it that you got, a beam of light came and hit him and knocked him to the ground, and he bumped his head on a boulder. And the next thing he knew is he was taken aboard the craft. But anyway, yeah, he's kind of he's still very troubled by the experience. Okay, the next conference was in 2014, and it was officially our third, and we had a tremendous speaker, Kevin Randall, who has written numerous books about the Roswell UFO incident. He's one of the leading UFO experts in the world. And we also had the niece of Betty and Barney Hill, well-known UFO abductees from the 1960s. Her grandmother and her husband, Barney Hill, were taken aboard a UFO, and they were communicated telepathically. These beings communicated with them and subjected them to a bunch of medical exams, strange medical exams. And so Kathleen Martin, the niece of Betty Hill, told us this amazing story. I'm going to play a short clip.
Thank you. Thank you so much for coming today. It's my pleasure to share my family's experience with you. I was 13 years old when my Aunt Betty Hill called my mother, who was her younger sister. It was the afternoon of September 20th, 1961. And Betty told my mother, Janet, that she and my Uncle Barney had had a very strange experience the night before as they were returning home from a short vacation to Niagara Falls and up to Montreal in Canada. And that's what I'm going to tell you about today.
So every year I'm the primary chooser of who comes to speak. And so every year we try to provide a variety of different experiences that have happened in the history of UFO research. I've tried to give a balance and a wide spread exposure that here in the Valley we've never gotten before. We've never had any kind of UFO research presence until we started having these conferences in 2012. So every year we've had some of the leading top experts in the field, such as Kathleen Martin. Now, we kept getting input from the audience, which we always listen to, as to who they want to come in to speak. And they kept telling us that they wanted to hear from George Norrie. Anybody listen to George Norrie radio show, Coast to Coast? I've been on it a few times. Unfortunately not recently, but I have been. And so we got a hold of George Norrie. I had known George Norrie because I had been on his show like 5 times. So I called him, and he was willing to come and speak in Edinburg. And we also were able to get a gentleman who was a friend of mine. He passed away, unfortunately, recently. Mark Goddard, from the old television series Lost in Space. Anybody old enough to know Lost in Space? Not the new series, but the old one. Yeah, one of my favorite shows. I was trying to get some more of the cast members, and we got the lady that played Judy Robinson to speak at another conference that I organized in Del Rio. But we got Mark Goddard, who he played the pilot of the Major Don West from Lost in Space, and he was a big hit with the audience, along with George Noor. I'm going to play a short clip of where all the speakers are together.
Got an exciting panel for you this morning. Please welcome to the stage your moderator, national talk show host, Mr. George Norrie. Hello, good morning. What a great panel, huh? My boyhood idol is here, Mark Goddard. We're back in Los Angeles. We're dear friends with little Will Robinson, Billy Mooney. He has. He's got a band and a little music career going and everything else. I had him on Coast to Coast a few years ago, and the first thing he said was, "You're a bad, bad man." Of the Twilight Zone.
So we had a great conference in 2015. The audience enjoyed George Norrie. George actually has been contacting me and wanting to come back, but he charges quite a bit, so we're going to hold off on that.
There's zero balance right now.
Zero balance.
Yeah, luckily the city kicks in some of its tourism money for the UFO conference. So, and by the way, I had a thought, Lily, when you were talking about an event that our group could be a part of, it could be in conjunction with the UFO conference, because they're always looking for somebody to extend the conference by a day. Say on the conference is always held on Friday and Saturday. Friday is a festival outdoors, and Saturday is the all-day speakers conference. Well, they're always looking for somebody to do the Thursday program.
What can we do?
And they wanted to be more experiencers and having people come up and tell their stories. We did it a couple of years. We called it UFO Open Mic. So I'm just going to throw this out there that program, it could be a part of the UFO weekend, and yet it would be this group's undertaking. And I can help facilitate that with the city. So you all.
Everybody heard that, right? Everybody said that. So.
That's right.
Thank you so much. Yes.
So it seems to me that would be a natural extension of what we're already doing, and people who are coming to the other events would be likely to come to our event on Thursday as well.
Didn't you do that a couple of years ago at the auditorium there in Edinburg?
We did a couple of years, and then the city, it was a lot of trouble for them, so they decided to go to the Friday and Saturday only, especially after COVID, but we can revive it, and it can be this group that revives it.
That was really cool. He had like 4 or 5 speakers.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it was really
like
good.
you said, right? You know, these hotels.
Yeah.
Okay, another person that kept popping up that we should invite was this gentleman, David Childress. How many of you know him from Ancient Aliens?
Yeah.
He's actually been down to the valley twice already to speak at our conference. This was the first time in 2016. He was a big success. And by the way, here he is, David Childress, and here's this guy that's always stalking him. Now, Steve Androsco, he was one of our speakers as well.
He's way cooler.
He did a tremendous job. He told stories of UFO encounters in the Old West, kind of a cowboys and aliens type. All right, so I'm going to talk a little bit more about this. We had, oh, by the way, we had Ben Hansen How many of you have seen him? He's on all the TV shows.
Yeah.
Ben Hansen is a big fan of Edinburg and the city of Edinburg.
Here last year, right?
Anytime, he's been here 4 times.
And famous.
Anytime that we want Ben to come and do anything, he will drop what he's doing and come. He loves Edinburg, he loves the valley, he loves the people of Edinburg. And
Noe,
so,
tell him how he talks about like the body language of interviewing.
oh yeah. So he
It's
did,
so interesting.
he spoke about the presidents, the past presidents from Bill Clinton onward, and how they're talking about UFOs. I think he also had the second Bush, George W. in there as well. When they've given media interviews and talking about UFOs, he was an FBI profiler, Ben was. And so he learned how to detect what the body movements mean. And so he showed us clips of the past presidents talking about UFOs and UFO crashes and extraterrestrials, and when they're being asked about it by the interviewer, how they became very uncomfortable and they started shifting around. And he said it's very clear to him from analyzing the footage that they know that UFOs exist, that the government has crashed UFOs and alien bodies, and that all of this is very clear by reading the nonverbal language and posture that the past presidents did. It's a very interesting presentation, by the way. You can go to my Facebook and listen to it, by the way. Not my Facebook, my YouTube.
What's your website, Noe?
It's roswellbooks.com, and it's youtube.com/Noe Torres.
I went on the Roswell one and saw
But they're actually doing stuff like this with...
Sorry. Okay, I'm gonna show you a brief clip of David Childress's first presentation for the Edinburgh conference. Let me see if I can go back. Yeah, it is.
But they're actually doing stuff like this with 50-ton, 100-ton blocks of stone, and even some are 1,000 tons. So clearly, this is being done by a very, very advanced civilization with very high technology. This would be extraterrestrials, or possibly very, very advanced technology created by ancient civilizations on Earth, having a technology that we can't really explain. Their technology is just beyond what we would expect from them.
David speaks about something that has always fascinated me since I was a kid. In the 1970s, I read a series of books written by Eric von Däniken about ancient extraterrestrials who came to Earth and influenced the development of human culture. They left a lot of artifacts which have been unburied, have been dug up, and we have found all over the world things that don't belong. There was a technology in place years ago that was very, very advanced. And so that is something that David Childress always speaks about, and I find his presentations extremely interesting. Okay, then we move on to 2017, and we had Ben Hansen back. We had a bunch of other very interesting speakers, Daryl Sims, Erica Lutz, Nick Redfern, and I'm going to show you a little clip of Nick Redfern.
Well, I'm going to speak to you today, as you just talked about, the Men in Black mystery. And before I should start, I should just point out I'm the one with the funny accent. So if you don't understand everything I'm saying, I'll try and talk slowly. Mention that I'm from the UK. I actually live in Arlington, so you're not very far to come at all. So, but you've got a really nice city down here, and having a good time. And again, I just want to thank everybody for coming along, and all the organisers as well, because without the organisers we haven't got a conference, and without you guys who are really interested in the subject, you know, we've got no one to share the information with and help to get the words out. So thanks to everybody who's here today. Now, as far as the Men in Black are concerned, I guess most people certainly outside of the UFO community, if you mention the words Men in Black, they think of Will Smith and Tommy Lee Jones, you know, the movie versions. And certainly speaking to members of the public who are outside of ufology, I found a lot of people don't realise that the movies are actually based upon real-life reports of people who had encountered Men in Black.
So Men in Black are a fascinating study, by the way. There's a lot of books on it if you're interested. Nick Redfern is probably one of the few people on Earth who has written more UFO books than I have. He's gotten in the hundreds now. And one of his favorite subjects is the Men in Black. These are strange beings that appear after a major UFO sighting, and they go and interrogate all the witnesses. And they suggest to them that it's best, they're all always dressed in a black suit, little black hat, sunglasses, and they suggest to the witnesses that it's to their advantage if they remain quiet about what they saw. Nobody really knows if these are government agents, if they're possibly extraterrestrials, alien hybrids. We don't know what the heck they are, but they tend to show up after a major UFO event, and they're called the Men in Black. So if you want to do more research, I recommend that.
No, do you think that the Men in Black is CIA or a completely or other organized federal organization, I guess?
There's a lot of theories about them. There's combinations of, they could be extraterrestrials that are in cahoots with the secret agency, intelligence agencies of the U.S. government, or they could be extraterrestrials operating with their own agenda, having nothing to do with the government. So there's a lot of theories.
But
it's an interesting study.
They also say that they're usually very, like their clothing is like outdated.
Yeah, they do not look like normal human beings.
Yeah, they look a little strange.
Are they time travelers, Noe? Are they time travelers?
That's another theory, that they somehow are able to travel in time. And they go back to when to places in time when a major UFO incident has happened. So, moving on, because my time is short, speaking of time travel.
You have 30 minutes.
Oh, I do? Okay.
Yeah,
my time has been extended. Good, because I have...
you're our special speaker.
I have 7 more years to cover. I got to do it in 30 minutes.
You got 7 years to go,
man. Can y'all see how it elevated after 2017?
Okay, 2017. Okay, a very interesting year, because I finally was persuaded that we needed to take people out to where Edinburgh's major UFO incident happened, a ranch north of town. We refer to it as the Edinburg UFO Ranch. And several of you have been out there. Bonnie, you've been out there, right?
No.
No, you haven't yet.
I was there last year.
Okay, you were there last year. It's a very interesting place. In case you haven't heard about it, I've written a book, and it was something very unusual. I'm gonna play a short clip from the very first program that we did out there at the ranch, and we took people down to where the UFO descended from the sky and hovered. And this was the very first program we had that evening. By the way, there was food. There you see the Edinburg Library staff on the bottom. And here you have, on the right side, you have myself and Joe. I'll tell you a little bit more about Joe on the next slide. Okay, we're going to talk about this very strange incident that happened here in 1966. Just behind the barn, and those of you that would like to and feel able to, it's quite a hike down to the end of the fence line. We'll be walking, anybody that wants to go. Joe Ponce and I, after our short presentation's done, we wanted to get it in before it gets, really dark. So anybody that wants to come along and stand there and see, we found some of the pieces of the machinery and the mobile home that were destroyed that night, we think. And so we'll take you out there walking in just a few minutes. So I want to introduce, first of all, the gentleman that brought this story to my attention, and that's Mr. Joe Ponce. Joe, stand up. Joe's involvement is that his dad, Emilio Ponce, was the Hidalgo County Sheriff's deputy that responded to the call that night in 1966 that something strange had happened out here. There were 8 eyewitnesses to this event, and they all told Deputy Ponce what had happened. They were extremely frightened, and we're going to get more into detail on the story as we go on.
So it was a very interesting case, and by the way, it has spread all over the United States, and people contact us all the time wanting more information. We've been on radio programs, we've been on, we got filmed for several local TV specials, and so it's a very, very interesting case, and every year part of the Edinburg UFO Conference is devoted to highlighting what happened in 1966 here in Edinburgh. But this was special because it was the very first time that we brought this out, and it has grown, you know, like wildfire ever since then. But in 2017, we brought it forward for the first time. It was covered by the media extensively. And then shortly after that, Joe Ponce and I collaborated on a book called Fire from the Sky, and it's been a really good way to disseminate more information, and now a lot of people know about it. So in 2018, we had our 7th annual Edinburg UFO Festival. We had one of the leading UFO researchers, Mr. Nick Pope. Mr. Nick Pope worked for the British government, and he was in charge of the top secret UFO files. Even to this day, because of the non-disclosure agreements that he signed, he cannot speak publicly about a lot of the stuff he saw. But talking to him, and I've spent a lot of time with him, we've sat down and had meals together. Talking to him makes you convinced that he saw the good stuff, not the stuff that's been released to the public. He saw the really good stuff. So I want to play a short clip of Nick Pope. We also had, by the way, that year, 2018, we had Travis Walton back. He's such a popular speaker. We had him back to speak again. Also in 2018 was the first time we were ranked the number 3 in the top 10 festivals for UFO and alien lovers. So we were very excited about that.
Noe mentioned the top secret files. In fact, the good news on that is that a surprising amount of the British government's UFO files are actually in the process of being declassified and released. And there's an amusing story about that. For years, the British government said to Parliament, to the media and to the public that this subject was of very limited interest to the department and of no defense significance. And yet, over the last few years, when we've been going through this process of declassifying and releasing the files, surprise, surprise, it turns out that we had around about 60,000 pages of documents which have now been made public in the UK. Well, 60,000 pages is not bad for a subject of very little defense interest. So, as is often the case with this subject, there's a slight gap between what governments say about UFOs and what they actually do. It's a very different story, and we'll get into some of that.
Okay, Mr. Nick Pope, he's been down to speak at our conference, I think 3 times, and he's a fascinating speaker. Like I say, he's very limited in what he can tell us in public, but once you get to know him, and I've spent a lot of time with him, it's very clear that he saw it all. He saw the information about the crashed UFOs that have been recovered. both by the U.S. and Britain, the high technology that's been found, the alien bodies that are being held at top secret facilities. He has the goods. He just can't. He's not at liberty to speak because of all the agreements he signed. In 2019, we had one of the top authors, and Bonnie was mentioning to me before the conference today, before the meeting today, that she just read a book called Witness to Roswell, which was written by Mr. Donald Schmidt, one of the world's top experts on the 1947 crash of a UFO near Roswell, New Mexico. How many of you are familiar with the story of the Roswell UFO crash?
What's that?
I have been out to the location where the object crashed. You can still find little pieces of junk out there. You can find the military. They combed the area on their knees and on their arms. Yes, you had a question, Lily.
Are you really like serious? We could find something if we went out there?
Oh, absolutely.
No way.
You can still find little pieces of the hardware from the soldiers' clothing, and you can find little metallic debris that, unless you have it analyzed by a lab, you have no idea, what it could be.
Wouldn't that be a cool trip for us to take?
Yeah, it would be. But anyway, it's way out in the middle of nowhere, by the way. It's about 150 miles north of Roswell in the desert, and there's no facilities. It was quite an endurance test, by the way. 4-wheel vehicle required, but it was worth it once you get there. So we had Donald Schmidt talk about the Roswell UFO crash, but the guy who turned out to be the featured attraction was a gentleman from Mississippi named Calvin Parker, originally from Texas. Calvin was one of 2 men who were fishing off a pier in Pascagoula, Mississippi in the 70s when a craft hovered and descended near them. I don't remember, it was 2 or 3 beings came out and abducted him and his partner, his fishing buddy, and took them inside the craft and subjected them to various exams. So we're going to, and by the way, Calvin just passed away, unfortunately, about 2 years ago. And so I think ours was probably the last public appearance that he made before he passed away. So we were extremely lucky. We had a great weekend together. We took him out to the UFO ranch north of town, and he walked all around. He said he felt something there. He felt that something had happened there. He was convinced that this was a unique site. I'm going to show you just a brief clip of Calvin Parker speaking.
And that always amazed me. And about that time I seen blue lights coming from behind, like the patrol car. The lights were just flashing out across over the water of the ship. And I thought, man, we fixing to go to jail for trespassing. And this isn't going to be the place to be. So I stood up and turned around and said, Charlie, look, they're back here to get us now. We're going to jail in a jocular manner. So he stood up and turned around and gosh, it was back, the blindest light you ever seen in your life just appeared then. It was the brightest light I have ever seen to be able to walk out through the woods in. So we both stood up at the same time, and you could make out, just looking, you could make out 3 bulky looking figures coming toward us. We didn't understand what they were then. And there wasn't nowhere to run. It was water over here on this side, water on that side, and you had debris in the water. So you didn't really have a choice. We just stood there, and it wasn't just a second these things appeared on us. So 2 of them got a hold of Charlie by the arm, and 1 of them got a hold of myself. And immediately when they got a hold of me, I felt a puncher, like a shot or something. And it kind of relaxed me. I was getting pretty scared by then.
It's a fascinating story. I wish I had time today to go over every one of these cases, but at least you've heard about them, those of you that are not familiar with them, and you can go and do more research online or at your local library. So Pascagoula UFO abduction case, one of the most famous in the world, next to Travis Walton. And we were extremely lucky, as I said, that Calvin was able to come down here. We spent a great weekend together, fed him some Texas barbecue, and he just loved it down here. He wanted to come back. Unfortunately, he passed away about a year later. 2020, we had that horrible thing that still haunts us, the COVID. And we had some really good speakers scheduled for April 4, 2020. How many of you remember about when the whole pandemic thing happened? Around March?
Yeah.
So right before the conference, you know, we had Richard Dolan, one of the top UFO guys in the world. We had him signed up to come. We had Ben Hansen again. This joker that appears every year, I don't know why they did it. But at the last minute,
I don't know who that guy is.
I don't know who he is. Anyway, we had it all set up. It was brilliant. We had you know, the whole thing planned, and then the stupid COVID came and upset our plans. They wouldn't let us have it. We talked about having, by the way, I was scheduled to speak again that year at the Roswell UFO Festival. And they called me and said, I'm sorry, but the government won't let us, the local government won't let us have this. So we did a virtual thing where I spoke online. Anyway, but Edinburg was thinking about doing something like that, kind of a virtual thing, but at the last minute they decided to just skip it for the year. Maybe have it later in the year. Since our conference is typically in April, they thought maybe the COVID thing, at that time people were saying, what was it they were saying? What was the slogan? 2 weeks to end it or something like that? Anyway, they were thinking maybe toward the end of summer maybe, but unfortunately it never materialized. So 2020, scratch it off.
And no, wait, that lady, is it Tracy, Tiffany, what's her name?
Yeah, Tracy is, okay, she's a good speaker on her own. She's the wife of Richard Dolan. They come as a package deal.
Oh.
So we were going to have Richard Dolan and his wife speaking. It didn't come to fruition. That's okay. 2021 promoted as a COVID-safe event. Did anybody here attend the 2021 event?
Was that the one out on the golf
Outdoors.
course?
Hey, that was a unique concept. I thought it was really cool.
I was there for that one.
So everybody was sitting in chairs with social distancing, except they started moving the chairs around. We had a really good lineup of speakers. We had Nick Pope and Ben Hansen were back, and you know, it was a really good outdoor festival. It was held at the Ebony Hills Golf Course, and unfortunately we lost Michael Paul just a few weeks ago. He was one of our speakers, the guy all the way on the right with the hat, the brown hat. His specialty was, of course he's a lawyer, he was an attorney, and his specialty was helping UFO people who had been abducted or had a UFO experience, and then they needed to do litigation. They needed to try to get out of the files about the investigation into their case and stuff like that. He would always be there to help UFO experiencers get a hold of their data. And then Nick Pope gave an excellent presentation as well. So we come down, we're getting close to the 12th annual, which just happened in April. So the 10th was held April 8th and 9th, 2022, and we finally got mostly back to quote-unquote normal, if you can actually say that a UFO conference is normal. Yeah, we finally were able to, to get that. We had some great speakers. We had Ken Gerhardt, who is into all kinds of cryptozoology, strange creatures like Chupacabra and Big Bird and Bigfoot. He's into all that stuff, and he's on all the TV shows. We had a great friend of mine from New York, Mr. Peter Robbins. I met him in Roswell when I went up there to speak. I was a speaker at the Roswell UFO Festival 6 years in a row. I met Peter and I got to greatly appreciate him. So I invited him down here and he was more than eager to come. He gave a great presentation on major UFO cases that have happened in Russia. And somebody told me, I wish they would come and abduct Putin. They don't want him though. They got their own problems. Mike Barra, great presenter as well, and Christopher O'Brien. Now we also had, in this little picture that you see here on the side, we went back out to the UFO ranch. That's Mr. Joe Ponce again. And we took people out again to look at this place where this incredible 1966 Edinburg UFO incident happened. So that was another opportunity to go out there. The land where this happened is privately owned, and the ranch owner is a real nice lady, but she's very protective of her property. And she doesn't always give permission. And you know, if you and I owned all that land and it was a working ranch and we had cattle, we would be protective too. I'm not casting any sort of, I'm not disparaging her in any way. She's protective, and it's difficult to arrange to use her property. But we did that here.
You think you'll ever bring Mr. Barra back?
UFO appeared. 1 second. Let me go back. I'm sorry, the question?
You think Mike Barra, do you think you'll ever bring him back?
Oh, Mike Barra was excellent. We definitely will. He gave a great presentation, and he's very science-oriented. Yeah. So we'll definitely try to get him back.
So, the first two
Peter Robbins.
At 6:30 p.m., as a red light descending toward the ground, the light then took on the appearance of a spherical or egg-shaped object, and then circled the immediate area, agitating the grass from about 40 feet. It then flew off, only returned a few minutes later and hover over the park. A door or hatch seemed to open on the lower half of the object, where a being could be observed. The UFO finally came to settle onto a poplar tree, causing the tree to bend under its weight.
Peter is a great guy, and he's great fun to spend time with and socialize with. He's a real short guy. If he's 5 feet, I would be surprised if he's 5 feet. And I had my camera positioned at the Edinburg Municipal Auditorium where we had this in such a way that the podium, the big podium that they had, hid Peter. You couldn't see him. You could just hear him speaking. So I didn't get any shots of him. I had to use some pictures that I took myself with my phone because he's so short. And, I needed to have adjusted the angle for him. All the other speakers were fine. We come down to 2023, and we moved into this incredible new facility. How many of you have been out to the Region 1 Education Conference Center? Did you all like that?
Yes.
It's fantastic.
That's cool.
It's very relaxed. There's tables. They have snacks. You can have snacks, drinks. There's a whole bunch of screens to look at. And it's just a beautiful facility, and we're continuing to use that, by the way. And we had a stellar lineup in 2023. We had David Childress, Mike Barra, Stanley Milford, and Jonathan Dover. They come together as a package talking about the Native American beliefs and their connection to the sky people and UFOs. We had Mark D'Antonio, an outstanding UFO researcher that talks about the science and the physics of UFOs. And we had this guy, Noe Torres again. I can't seem to shake him, but it was a real good. But people were asking me why in August. Isn't the conference always in April? Well, we had a scheduling problem in 2023. There was this Vietnam War Memorial program that was brought down here, and that was starting in April, and they didn't want the conflict. The city didn't want the conflict, so they bumped us to August, and it was fine. It was a little hot. The speakers were saying, "Is it always this hot here?" And I said, "Yeah, pretty much." So David Childress was back. He gave a great presentation. I'm going to show you a short clip of David Childress speaking, and here he is.
So also there was a huge monolith, like a obelisk that was found off of Sicily, and it's in the water, and it had a hole at one end. So here's a giant that is dying underwater. There's over 200 known Sami cities in the Mediterranean. They weren't built, they weren't built by the water. So it's been some cataclysm, it's drowned. This is an aerial photo of the unfinished obelisk at Aswan in Sardinia. And this weighs also about 1,000 tons.
So it was a really good conference, 2023. How many went to 2023? Great, yeah. Region 1, as I mentioned, is just a fantastic place. So this is my last one that I'm going to cover today. The 12th annual, which was held this past August. And it was an outstanding conference again. Ben Hansen is back. It's like his 5th. We just can't shake this guy either. No, he's an outstanding speaker.
Wasn't it in April, not in August?
Yeah, this one was, and that's the other interesting thing. It was only like 6 months after the one in August, then we had the 2024 one. We always shoot for April, the first weekend in April. So it's always that, unless there's something really weird like the Vietnam War Memorial thing. So what we did this past one, this should have said April, I'm sorry. I see in my slide that I typed it in wrong up at the top, but it is April, it was April 5th and 6th. And we had David Marler, Ben Hansen, Michael Schratt, Stacy Wright. Poor Stacy, I don't know, there was something happened to her on her flight down here. She got really sick, and she was sick and had to stay in her hotel room for most of the time she was here. I felt really bad that she had a bad experience. It's never happened before to any of our speakers. I don't know what was going on with her health-wise, but that was the only slight hit. She was able to do her presentation, but she wasn't able to be part of our speaking panel. We went out to the ranch. We took people out to the ranch. And here's just a little clip from my presentation that I gave about my book had just come out. My book on the Edinburg UFO incident of 1966 came out in November 2023, and this was the first conference where I was able to speak on it. I'm going to show you a short clip.
The workers told deputies that as they were sleeping, they were suddenly awakened by strong gusty winds that were so intense that the structure of their mobile home was shaking. They were puzzled by the sounds they heard outside, especially since earlier in the evening they had noticed that the wind was calm and no threat of storms seemed apparent. As they stepped outside their mobile home to investigate, the workers saw a sight that further astonished them. Although all the skies for miles around them were clear and calm, the area immediately around their camp was becoming a roiling cauldron of turbulence. A strange cloud formation had appeared over their RV, and within the clouds the workers could see strange multicolored lights flashing and shining. The disturbing sight was punctuated by a loud throbbing of pulsating sound that seemed to vibrate through the men's bodies with a ferocious intensity. They continued looking up as the weather disturbance began to define itself into a cigar-shaped, illuminated object of immense size, hovering directly above their campsite, still partially wrapped in the cloud formation.
So, 2024 was a great conference, and we have tried for 12 years to get this guy down here. I mean, I contacted everybody that I knew. David Childress, a friend of mine who works with Giorgio all the time, we just couldn't fit him in. He's booked, by the way, between 2 and 3 years in advance, and he charges an arm and both legs to come and speak. But we finally were able to wrap him up, thanks to the city and the library staff. The library director ordered a copy of my Edinburg 1966 book for every member of the city council and the mayor and the top officials, and presented a copy of my book to them. And I guess that might have been the impetus for them to cough up the money to get Giorgio, because shortly after that, it's confirmed he's signed the paperwork, unless something catastrophic happens between now and then. Giorgio Sekula will be our featured speaker, and he's going to have with him a bunch of other ancient aliens, alumni, let's call it that, people who have appeared on the show. I know the city was trying to get Nick Pope back, because he's been on Ancient Aliens a lot, and they're trying to get David Childress and a few others. So this time around, we're going to do kind of an Ancient Aliens theme. And I told the library director, that's fine with me, because I consider myself to kind of be sort of an ancient alien myself. Right, Steve? Yes, ma'am.
Do you know when tickets will be available?
They usually start about a month ahead of time, but since this is kind of a very special one, they might start sooner. I'm going to ask Letty Leha, the library director, and we'll disseminate that information. Yes, ma'am.
Do you have like a figure close to how much a ticket's going to be per person?
It should be about the same as before.
Are you going to include the trip to the ranch or not?
That has not been arranged with the landowner yet. There's always negotiations that kind of get until close to the conference, and she's not on the property all the time, and she doesn't want to open it up if she's not in town, and so we won't know until closer to the end. Another question over there?
I just wanted to mention about the tickets for this coming up, I guess the Edinburg UFO. If you guys sign up with us, and as many times you come to our meetings, we are taking down the names, and we are going to give out 2 free, tickets out to the staff, the members who sign up. So if you come 3 times, you have 3 chances. But if you come all 12 times for the year, you guys have a good chance of winning those tickets. So I encourage you guys to,
Very good. And like I say, I would love to see our group become more directly involved, because the city is open to it. And Letty Leha and I have worked together for years. And however this group wants to interface with that weekend when the UFO Festival is held, then they're going to be certainly very amenable to it.
For sure we'll participate in the festival and stuff like that.
Absolutely.
But if we can sit down, the staff can sit down with you and come up with ideas of what to do, like with the speaking of, especially have some local people speak about their experiences down here.
There's a gentleman in McAllen, by the way, Donato. There's a guy in McAllen who had this incredible abduction experience while driving from San Antonio to McAllen in the 60s. And I'm gonna try to get him because he would be a perfect speaker for that. There's a question over here.
Yeah, like for the day before the conference, like if one of us wanted to have a booth to sell things or do something like that, who do we talk to?
You can talk to Lily and we'll get that arranged with the city.
We'll be there as part of
yeah, MUFON gets a booth.
We'll be there.
But like if I wanted to do one on my own side?
Yeah, they will send you the announcements where you can get with the city and acquire a booth.
That's up to the city with that.
Yeah. There's a fee. I don't know what the fee is, but there's a nominal fee for that.
Renting of the space, yeah.
Okay, I went through a lot. I went through 12 years, but are there any last questions before we wrap my part of it up? Yes?
When are you gonna set up a new interview over there?
A new interview? When are we going to have an interview?
Oh, that
The
event.
festival is gonna be next year.
Next year?
Next year.
In April. Like when your dad has to worry about his taxes, right?
That's right.
Luckily he can buy his tickets ahead of time.
Yeah.
I know.
Not yet, April.
And Noe, any way you can set up with Giorgio, like our special time with our chapter, because he's so hard to take a picture with, man.
I think
we were in San Antonio.
I think we can set that up, yes.
We were in San Antonio a couple of weeks ago. Some of us got together and we went all the way to San Antonio to see Giorgio. Pope was there. I can't remember the other two guys. It was a nice presentation, but the line to go take photos with him was huge. I mean, and
So no, it won't be like that here. So we'll set something up.
Yeah. So it's gonna be fun.
Question.
More of a comment. You didn't mention Daniel. He's really good. He's the MC.
Daniel Jones, my friend.
Yes.
Daniel
he does an
is
awesome job.
okay. I said they were trying to get me to be the MC for these, and I said, look, let's get somebody young and energetic. I've known Daniel for years.
Is he coming back?
And I'm sorry?
Is he coming back?
Yeah, Daniel. Yeah, no, Daniel.
That is cool.
Daniel is he's now a core. Well, he's been with us since the beginning, as he used to come and support us and do. The city would give him admission to everything because they knew he was helping all of us put the thing together. So then I told Letty, let's make him the official MC, and he's been outstanding.
Yeah.
He dresses up. He's fantastic. Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned him. All right, we turn it over to you all. Thanks a lot, everybody.